We are all doing life, but who knew it could be this funny? Welcome to the Maria and Chad Doing Life podcast.
I am beyond excited about today's podcast. The reason? I've done a little bit of homework. I had to ask for permission from a band to be able to play an exclusive song here on the podcast.
Ooh.
And it's very special to me, and I think you'll love it. That's coming up towards the end of the podcast, so don't miss that towards the end today. Maria, we should start the podcast today. I want to draw some attention to all of the detail and careful planning that you did for my wife's birthday. Can we start with what I first saw when we pulled into your driveway on 4th of July?
Sure, go ahead.
So Maria, if you don't know Maria very well, if you haven't listened to the radio show, haven't listened to our podcast, we've always said that Maria is a great gift giver. And this is a great example of you being a great gift giver. Pull up in the driveway. What was written on the sidewalk, Maria?
Happy birthday, Stephanie.
Before we even got in the house. So that's on the sidewalk in some amazing multicolored chalk, which again was not designed by an 8-year-old. This is Maria out there on her hands and knees, I'm assuming.
Well, the chalk itself was kind of layered in different colors. So when you use the chalk, it would change colors on its own. So it was just basically me, squatting down and writing. It really, I'm glad you guys appreciated it, but it really didn't take that long.
And I know that you're downplaying this, but let me continue. So we go into the house, and on the kitchen table, we found, was the pie out already?
Yeah, the pie was out with the little banner.
And then you had made presents for my daughter and myself. You made us these wristbands that you've been making. Bracelets, yep. And then my friend Cindy, I have to give props to Cindy. She does embroidered, like if you wanted a koozie with your name on it or whatever, she does these for our trips. She's like a good friend of the family. And I know you guys like Roger Klein and the Peacemakers. Yes.
And so I had her make koozies for you, beer bottle koozies with the Roger glyph on it and your name.
It was way more than anyone could have expected. I can't thank you enough. I know it was a few days after your birthday, kind of celebrating your birthday, and then a few days before my wife's birthday. And again, just thanks for having us over. Thanks for doing all that for my wife. So it was 4th of July. So we came home because we were going to begin a road trip, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. But we came home and it was time to get packed because we were going to leave the next morning. You were going to leave for your camping trip. But we had fireworks that we had bought for our 14-year-old daughter. And we decided we live close to this park. So we took our camping chairs, lawn chairs over there. And, she's old enough now that I was kind of teaching her how to light fireworks. And the first one that we lit off, again, you know what? It was one of the ones that your husband, because he has his real estate business, he gave us a couple of packages of fireworks. So I figured,
okay.
Honestly, this is too late for 4th of July warnings, but I figured it was just like sparklers that your husband gave us. Do you know what he was handing out to his clients?
I have no idea.
There were sparklers in one box. There was another one that I was wearing flip-flops. I lit like kind of maybe 6 inches from my toes. That thing was intense. Like I was all the warnings that we've said over the years of, be careful with fireworks were rushing through my head, and it was too late. Like these things were blowing up at my toes, and they were really good. It was like, I don't know how, it was like a line and then pop, 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 pop type of thing. But again, I just expected like fireworks, little sparkler deals that weren't very, very good. So props to your husband for giving us these fireworks. But the reason I wanted to tell you about our 4th of July fireworks is we had our lawn chairs at the park. So every time we would light off, we got them at Fry's at the grocery store. They weren't anything fancy. We would light off this little fireworks, spark, spark, spark. Across the other side of the park, it was the closest thing to professional display you could ever have. So we would do our little thing, and then just explosions going off. And they must have just been laughing at us because they were waiting for us to do our little crappy ones. And then they had like the big mortars. I don't know what they call them. Big sparkly, like a professional
That's
grade.
funny because our neighbor across the street, Eddie, all of a sudden we hear these big boom, sparkle, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we go outside, same thing. These big mortars are going up, and you're right, it's the closest thing to professional fireworks that you're going to get. And the next day, we go to Eddie. We're like, hey, Eddie, thanks for the fireworks show. It was great, but I was waiting for the finale where there's, 20 of them that go off at the same time. He goes, that wasn't even me. He goes, that was the guy in back of us. I'm like, oh.
Is it bad
So
for me to
his wife was
say-
sitting in a lawn chair in their backyard. We're sitting in our backyard watching the fireworks.
Is it bad for me to say that I actually enjoyed this 4th of July more than most? Like I like concerts and crowds and things, I guess, in certain times, but I actually enjoyed this 4th of July because, again, we had like a pro show in front of us and we were just across the street from our house. I kind of liked it. I don't know how long we're going to be dealing with coronavirus stuff and, staying away from people and wearing masks and all the things that come along with COVID-19. But I enjoyed this 4th of July. We spent time with you and your family. We were swimming, we came home, we did the fireworks. And then the next morning, before we get to our road trip that I did with my family, I know you got up with your husband and went camping along the rim, right?
Well, it was kind of interesting because I don't get a whole lot of days off from work.
Yeah.
And I work at Costco. And on Saturday, it was the 4th of July. So I had that day off. And then completely randomly, they scheduled me Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. So I had a 4-day weekend.
Which hasn't happened
And
this
my husband's
year, right?
like, we are... Right, exactly. So he was like, hey, why don't we go up camping? So, earlier in the week, I had a day off. And so we went up and did some recon and we found this place that I was like, this is where we're going to camp. So we get up there. And again, this is the day after 4th of July. And we're still thinking there's going to be people up there. There was no one.
Oh, that's great.
No one was up there. So we get the camping spot that we want. We set up. It is quiet. The only thing, I think we saw a couple quads go by and maybe one truck the entire time we were up there.
Wow.
It was bizarre. And we just sat there with the dog and we cooked and walked around and peed and pooped in the woods and, just did nothing. And I told my husband, I go, our vacation wasn't exactly... Our camping trip wasn't exactly fun, but it was relaxing. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. It's good to get away. How was your dog, Olive? I think it was the first camping trip for Olive, right?
She went with us before, but with another dog. And so she was pretty much by our side the whole time. If one of us went into the trailer, she'd cry because she wanted all three of us together all the time. So one of us couldn't go do something on our own. We all had to do it together.
I hope you don't mind me. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I hope you don't mind me bringing it up. Like I saw on social media that you were crafty while you were camping.
Well, I brought up because I'm on this making paracord bracelet kick and other bracelets, and so while I'm up there, I'm kind of bored, whatever, and I brought my knotting kit, and so I made a couple bracelets, and I said, I'll leave a couple of them here, and then whoever finds the campsite can have them. And my husband says, well, why don't you put a note in there that says, keep one of these, but then give one away to somebody, kind of spread the love. Ding! So I did. I made 2 of them. I put them in a little Ziploc bag and I put a note in there that says, hey, I was here camping, made these bracelets. Please keep one and then give one away, spread love one bracelet at a time, blah, blah, something like that.
So you created
and
like a
I did
whole
that,
Instagram
and then
for
I
it.
don't think you know this yet. I was just going to say, I did a whole Instagram. My daughter helped me put it together, and it's Give One Bracelet. At Give One Bracelet is the Instagram. And I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to send some bracelets to family in Texas and Wisconsin and Michigan and have them put them out randomly so I can kind of get across the whole United States.
I think I've already followed you. I'm making sure that I'm following you right now. If you're listening to the podcast, it's at Give One Bracelet. You can follow. You got following? Mm-hmm. Okay, I see the picture. All right, so I'm following you now. Make sure you follow Maria at Give One Bracelet. And also our personal Instagram is at Maria and Chad. So MariaAndChad. So there we go. All one word, Maria and Chad. So while you were camping, we were driving. Take a guesstimate on how many miles, because I did the calculation. How many miles do you think our road trip was?
4,000.
1,900 miles. You overbid.
Oh, wow. I was a little over.
We left Phoenix. We went to Arches National Park right outside of Moab, Utah. Then we went to Aspen, Breckenridge. Estes Park is where we spent the majority of our time for my wife's birthday, for the actual date of my wife's birthday, which is right next to Rocky Mountain National Park. Then we went to Lake George, Colorado, and then Buena Vista, Colorado, and then Durango, Colorado, and then back home. So yeah, 1,900 miles. We saw elk, deer, bear, yaks. Have you seen a yak in person before?
No, and I've never seen a bear in person. I mean, other than like in a zoo, like a wild bear?
Yeah, so it was up on the side of the road. It was actually the second to the last, no, it was the last day when we were driving home before we got to Durango. We were driving along and it was just on the right side of the road. It looked like a cub. It wasn't a huge bear. And we actually turned around and I got kind of a bad picture as it scurried back into the woods. But my daughter was actually great. She was identifying pronghorns, and we saw herds of sheep, alpacas, and llamas, which I know are your thing, Maria.
I love me an alpaca.
And we had our puppy with us. She is a bird dog, and oh my gosh, trying to train a puppy when you have a bird dog and there's birds everywhere. I'm trying to think of there's so many highlights from this trip. It was a great family getaway. On my wife's actual birthday, which was July 9th, we were sitting at this restaurant that we had just kind of stumbled upon. It was a happy accident. By the way, where they had the best strawberry rhubarb pie with ice cream on it for dessert. My wife found a new beer that she likes called Epic Day that was recommended by my buddy Anthony. But we're sitting there enjoying this meal for happy hour for her birthday, and behind us, which was like the entrance to Rocky Mountain National Park, I had never witnessed this before. We saw an entire herd of elk. I mean, I couldn't count them. Probably 40 of them just running along the road right behind where we were sitting, where I was sitting, and my wife was facing towards it. It was really, really cool. You know, I do have a discovery that I want you to try if you have not tried yet. A road trip snack, or you could eat it on the couch. Have you tried Dots pretzels yet?
DOTS?
DOTS, I think. Yeah.
Dots pretzels. No.
Okay. Look those up. They're kind of, I'm trying to think, what's that stuff you like? The Giardettos? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that spice on pretzels.
Ooh.
And I forget the backstory, but they do have some tie to the Valley where they, started manufacturing them here in Phoenix, but I think they started making them somewhere else for themselves, and then, ended up expanding. So look for those. And the other thing I wanted to share from our trip, which I just wish I had on video, we were at National Park, Rocky Mountain National Park. And the thing that's going around, people calling women Karens. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Have you witnessed any Karens at your work before I tell you what we saw?
Oh, of course. Yes. There's Karens everywhere.
So this is 80 degrees. It's not super hot out. And we were stopping, as you do at a national park, you stop and go on the side of the road and you look at the scenery, or you look at wild animals or whatever you come across. And we were stopping, and I remember it was 80 degrees because of what happened. We were heading back to our vehicle with our puppy, and this lady basically like verbally attacked our daughter, telling her, because she was holding the puppy, that the dog should be wearing booties. It's too hot for her feet. Again, it's 80 degrees. We're used to 100, every day at our house in Phoenix. But the greatest thing was I was taking some photos. So I was like, maybe 20 yards behind my wife and daughter, but they didn't realize I was part of that group. And so I saw it happening, and it was really inappropriate. My wife and daughter just kind of took it and walked on. I was able to tell this lady off because she didn't know that I was like, because they passed my wife and daughter. It was two women. Mm-hmm. And after they passed, they kept talking about it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they have their dog out here without booties on. It's so hot. They're going to burn the feet off of that dog. It was priceless because she had no idea that I was coming. And,
so what did you say?
I just said, why do you talk to a 14-year-old like that? What do you know about our dog? And, are you a veterinarian? I literally laid into her because she deserved it. She was butting in and telling her opinion about something she didn't understand.
Did you say we're from Arizona and we know how to take care of our dog's feet, you moron?
I did exactly what I said. I said, we're used to having our dog outside when it's 100 degrees and they don't stay out very long. This is 20 degrees cooler and no big thing. I don't know where you're from. I didn't ask them that, but I just, I tried to make sure that she realized that what she was doing. The biggest thing was that she was doing it. If she did it to me or my wife, I wouldn't care. But as my daughter, who, doesn't want to talk back to an adult like that, it was, it was just funny. And, the whole thing right now with the Karen thing, I'm like, oh, I met a Karen. I met somebody with an opinion that I didn't need to hear.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you kind of, this might be a difficult question.
Okay.
We do this whenever we used to do our work trips together. Uh-huh. What was your highlight of your trip and what was your low light? One thing.
Oh, the highlight is tough, but the first thing that comes to mind is, as I talked at the beginning of the podcast, you're such a great gift giver and being very thoughtful. It's a struggle for me to come up with gift ideas. And there were some things that we bought for my wife and she bought for herself on this trip. So she got birthday gifts. But the idea with this road trip was that would kind of be her vacation because it was, different costs involved. But on the day of her birthday, there was kind of a nicer restaurant across from the hotel that we were staying at. And I got their menu the day before and I looked at that and I'm like, man, we could go there, but that's going to cost way more than we probably should pay for a meal. And so I asked Steph, I said, this is what it is. I showed her the menu. I go, do you want to go here? I'm totally fine with that. And she goes, why don't we try that pizza place that everybody's going to? So we went, this is again in Estes Park, Colorado. And they have social distancing down to a science. This pizza place does not allow you to eat in their restaurant. When you pick up the pizza, which you have to order online, you can't actually talk to a person. You have to go to a table, 1, 2, 3, or 4. The people are wearing a mask. You have to wear a mask. Everything is done digitally. There's no money exchanged. So we picked up this pizza from Antonio's Pizza and went to a lake with my wife's new favorite beer, Epic Day IPA. And we had beer and pizza on a park bench, looking at the reflection of the mountains in this picturesque lake. I mean, it was beautiful. So that was the moment that I think of when you ask the highlight. The low light? I mean, there were so many times
Karen?
I had Karen. Yeah, Karen could be, driving where we did through, with COVID going on, I had to pee and I was kind of afraid to stop while we were on the reservation because there are so many COVID cases. I stopped at one gas station and I asked, the restrooms were closed, out of order. So I think that would probably be there are many lowlights, many highlights, but yeah, just having to pee and nowhere to go, you know?
You're a guy. You can pull off on the side of the road and go there.
Maybe I'm in the minority. I was afraid of doing that. Again, it's always trying to set a good example for our daughter. But on top of that, like, I didn't know if I'd get in trouble, you know? Like, we went through Monument Valley. I didn't even tell you about that. So we recreated, do you know in Forrest Gump, when he decides he's running and he goes, I'm done, I'm going to go home. That happens. Yeah. That happened in Arizona. So we went to that spot, and my daughter and I did a run, and my wife took some pictures, and we had done this 5 years ago. So we kind of updated the photo. But yeah, there's so many stories. It was a great vacation. And I know I'm sounding like that guy that's like, hey, come over and I'll show you all my photos from my vacation, and nobody cares. But it really was. It was much needed, I guess, time with the family when, it's Groundhog Day. Everybody is kind of doing the same thing every day. And I got to say, we took our temperature when we got home. We've been taking it every day to make sure we didn't catch something on the trip. But we did pretty good. We wore our masks all the time. I can't say that for everybody that we encountered. It was kind of amazing to see how many people are not wearing masks still on this trip. But like when you check into a hotel, there's plastic up, and I don't know, it's as safe as can be, to the point where when we went to the hotel hot tub, I wore the mask until we got in the hot tub to make sure that, because it was a hot spot. Like, people are trying to figure out what to do with their time. And there were, one night we were going to go to the hot tub and there was like 10 people in there. I'm like, going back to the room. I'm not doing that. Not getting that close. And, other than, taking elevators, just waiting for people to get off. I mean, it was pretty socially distant. We were at national parks. We were out in nature. I know that, after your camping trip, you had a million days of work. Was there anything unique that you wanted to share on the podcast from your going back to work after your camping trip?
So, yeah, while you're gallivanting around, having this great time seeing bear and elk and deer and pronghorn sheep and all that, I'm working.
Of course.
And I go to work, and one of the cashiers has this full arm tattoo. And it's not color, it's just, black. And I'm like, did you get a tattoo? He goes, oh yeah, I ordered it online. It's a fake one. I just want to see if I like it or not. And I kind of started giggling. I'm like, you literally bought a fake arm tattoo. It wasn't a sleeve, so don't get me wrong. It wasn't like the whole sleeve.
Yeah.
But it was this ginormous tattoo. And he had it for a few days. I go, well, do you like it? And he goes, yeah. And then I come to work like a little while later, he's got a whole nother one. I'm like, are you still deciding? He goes, yeah, just a different design. I mean, to me, it was so funny that he would buy a full arm tattoo just to see if he likes it.
I guess that's kind of like test driving a car. I mean, it is such a permanent thing. Do you think he'll go through with a permanent tattoo?
Well, he said he will.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember right, he said he and his wife both got the fake tattoos. And we're not talking about the little ones you have kids put on your arm and you put them on with water.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing was probably 18 inches long on his arm. It was huge.
You have to keep us updated on.
But you're right. It's like test driving a car, and it just kind of made me giggle. And I didn't even know that they made ginormous fake tattoos. So I learned something.
I don't know if you saw this. I wanted to share these on the podcast. A lot of over the weekend, I asked on Facebook for people to share their positive news. One of our big listeners of our radio show and now our podcast is Kira. Didn't we deliver something to her office? Was it donuts or we
delivered
flowers?
Donuts, and we had our Maria and Chad mugs.
That's right.
And we gave her one of the mugs, and she was very excited about that.
So I said, what's some good and positive news? So she was like the first one to comment, and I am so envious. So her husband now has an 85-inch TV.
Oh my God.
Which it just makes mine seem so small. I guess size does matter in that regard. Let's see. Brian said that he's planned a vacation for August for his wife and I.
Yay.
Cindy was in the pool yesterday. Oh, I wonder what this is. Great. It might be like a monster truck show. Aaron went to a monster truck show over the weekend. Somebody was watching their grand dog. That's Michelle. Let's see.
Oh, of course. Hi, Michelle.
Oh, my cousin commented she had the Popeyes sandwich. Have you had the Popeyes sandwich yet?
No, there's no Popeyes by my house.
Oh, you have to go. I when all the hype was going on, I'm like, it's not worth it. I finally tried it. So good and so economical. Let's see. JR had a great fellowship and ministering time with new friend, and then went to casino and came back with $20 more than I went with. That's a big win.
Okay, that's a win.
Did you watch the UFC over the weekend?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you mentioned that. So we watched up to, like, we didn't pay for it. We watched up to the pay-per-view started.
Yeah.
And then we get a text from my daughter, who is a second-degree black belt, and we have trained her to love these fights.
Yeah.
Because she knows the moves and she kind of gets it.
Yeah.
So she texts us and she goes, "Are you watching this?" And we're like, oh my God, she's watching the fight. And apparently her roommate's boyfriend somehow brought it up on his computer. I don't know if they paid for it or what they did. But she was watching it. We were not. At least not the headlining ones.
We watched it. The best fight was the second to last fight. And this is one of the, they said that they watched UFC with their friends. This is Jed and Joe and Ashley in Tampa, Florida. They watched the UFC fight, and they said that that was the highlight of their weekend. But the second to last fight is probably one that your daughter Lucy saw. There was a total, when it goes the distance, I think it was 5 rounds.
Right.
The taller guy who was like the kicker and kind of skinnier, skillful dude, he was supposed to win the fight, and they gave it to the other guy. Holloway was robbed over the weekend. But yeah, my wife and I actually watched the UFC over the weekend. Let's see. Lynn said it rained. Oh, it didn't rain all day. That's the positive way to look at the heat that we're having. This is funny. Brian said, I survived a 12-hour car ride with my wife, daughter, and cat. and then his wife commented, OMG, we survived you too. Let's see. I don't know what this means. Made my first dovetail box with my Porter cable dovetail jig. What's that?
Okay, so dovetail is when the little pieces fit together. Uh-huh. And then the jig is probably the tool. Like, I make my paracord bracelets on a jig.
Okay. Again, what's that Instagram for your?
It is Give One Bracelet.
At Give One Bracelet on Instagram.
At Give One Bracelet.
A few more of these. Adam says, I got my youngest son his second car. That's pretty cool.
Oh.
Shannon wrote, spent the weekend exploring Door County, Wisconsin. Beautiful lakefront views. Had some and brought back some Spotted Cow beer. Have you had that?
Yes! Oh, Spotted Cow beer is so good.
And a comment here, you got to try some Tippy Cow, which we've had before. It's like a shot, like a flavored shot. Both Wisconsin people know about that. Bob said, spent some time with my wonderful daughter, Lindsay. Oh, Shauna, this is the guy who was my best man in my wedding. His wife wrote, Evan hit a home run, included a video. They're playing baseball, which is, I think that's great that they haven't taken that away from a lot of kids. They're able to still play. A couple more. Oh, this is huge. Linda Marie wrote, someone needed assistance with paying for rent. They were a bit short, so I Venmo'd them money. Didn't know the person. They reached out on our community Facebook page, and she had a child. The good Lord told me to assist her, so I did. It's too hot out to live in one's car. Wow.
That's nice.
That's amazing. Thank you, Linda Marie, for that. A couple more here before we move on. Got a faster bike. That's Tasha. Laurel wrote, nice weather in Northern Illinois. Got to start repainting the deck. Oh my gosh. I remember when I was in the Midwest, repainting the deck was like a yearly thing.
Yep.
And Smokey, who used to be my boss here in Phoenix, he now lives up in Washington. He successfully mounted a light on cedar lap siding. It seems like something that you would get excited about.
Yay, Smokey. That's tough. Good for him.
Betsy was biking, stand-up paddleboarding, and hiking, loving the mountains. And Marcy assembled this 85-pound shoe storage by myself. Again,
jeez.
that's like something that you would be all about. But didn't you find something else, some other good news that you wanted to share on the podcast today?
I have some good news. And I love animals. So this is like my good news animal story for the week.
Okay.
This is a story I found in Colombia. And again, they're doing social distancing in Colombia. There are certain days markets can be open for people. And that's not very often. And so in Colombia, the people who are delivering groceries, and I'm not talking like at the grocery store, I'm talking you go to the market and like a farmer's market.
Okay.
And you buy, the vegetables and stuff. Well, delivery people are at a minimum, and there is a family who has a dog. And the father did not want a dog, and the son begged and begged and begged and pleaded, can I please have a dog? And they got this dog, and they would take the dog on deliveries before COVID hit and everything. Uh-huh. And the dog got to learn the people's names, and they would always give him treats.
Yeah.
So fast forward to COVID 2020 here, and this dog is now making deliveries.
What?
He has been trained to know there's about 5 or 6 people he knows. He doesn't know the addresses, obviously, but he knows the name. And so customers will text in and say, hey, I need some asparagus and blah, 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 whatever it is. And they put the food in a little basket. The dog will say, they'll say, go to Chad's house. And the dog will go to Chad's house. Inside the basket will be the food and a receipt. The people will transfer money, again, just Venmo or whatever, transfer money.
Yeah.
But the dog will not leave until he gets a treat.
That is insane.
And that's his pay.
Oh my gosh. And there's video of this, I'm assuming, out there?
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. So no address. Again, the dog obviously doesn't know the address, but he knows the name. He won't leave without a treat. And then the people just bank transfer the money. And so this dog does deliveries for about 5 or 6 of this family's customers. I think that is the cutest story ever.
Can you share that on the Maria and Chad Facebook page when you get a minute? So people can.
I will.
Yeah, just search for Maria and Chad on Facebook. Make sure you follow us there, and on Instagram at Maria and Chad. Before we wrap up today, Maria, this is something that I've been working on. I don't even know if I tipped you off on this, but I wanted to play you a song before 4th of July, and it's a special song because it's called 4th of July, so I thought it'd be nice to play before 4th of July, but it still works. And a little bit of a backstory. When we talk about music, I can't say enough how much I love music. There was a band in Chicago that I saw countless times with my wife long before we were married. They were kind of I think the category would be power pop. The name of the band is Material Issue. Now, they were on Saturday Night Live. They were on MTV a few times, but they're not one of those bands that made it huge nationally, right?
I kind of know the name, to be honest.
So when I play this for you, you may be able to spark some memories for you. But so I can tell you a little bit about this band. I interviewed them on my college radio station. I went downtown to a bar that the lead singer was playing records at, if you can remember that. He was playing his personal record collection, and we're like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to see what this guy likes to listen to. And he hit on my girlfriend that night.
Oh, nice.
But still not enough to make me not like him. The sad ending to the story is right after I graduated college, I'll never forget, I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor at my friend's house without a job, graduated college. It was like a whole 6 months or something before I found work. And I was listening to the radio, and the guy came on the radio and said, I'm getting chills as I tell you this, said that Jim Ellison had committed suicide. And Jim Ellison was the lead singer of Material Issue. And it's kind of making me sad, like I remember I was crushed. I was graduated from college. I didn't have a job, and my favorite band's lead singer has killed himself. It turns out, if the details that I have are correct, it was over a girl, and years later, again, this is 1996 when this happened. They had a lot of concerts and albums and all this stuff in front of them. I recently discovered that they are doing a documentary about this band. I got to know one of the band members, Ted Ansani, who is the guitarist, after Jim had committed suicide, and nothing kind of happened. Like I think Ted works at a bank now. Like it just kind of, all these guys' hopes and dreams were over because of what he decided to do. The reason I bring all this up is they're doing this documentary now about the band, and just before 4th of July, they released a song that had never been released called 4th of July. And I was a little apprehensive before I clicked on it because I'm like, okay, this has been a long time ago. This was recorded. It wasn't released for a reason.
Right.
It must not be very good. I was wrong. and the reason I didn't want to play it for you and put it on the podcast, I wanted to make sure that I had permission, for licensing and that sort of thing from the band and the documentary. And so I promised them that I would give out their Instagram. If you want to follow and get details as they put together this documentary, it's at Material Issue DOC. So at Material Issue Doc. And are you ready to hear the song?
I am ready, yes.
Okay, and here we go. This is Material Issues, 4th of July. It would have been recorded probably before, definitely before 1996. Okay.
Just turn off the radio, I've been alone tonight. Put the kids to bed and throw that hound dog in the yard. Shut off the TV and turn out the light, 'cause I got a feeling we'll be up all night. Can you remember before all of this, sitting on your front porch and sharing our first kiss, stars dancing up in the sky? Every song they played, they played for you and I. Won't you kiss me like the 4th of July? Tell me that you need me and you'll never say goodbye. Without your love, I think I would die. So kiss me like the 4th of July. Some days I never thought that I would make it through, but I'd come home each night, and I'd spend it here with you. It's hard to put it into words, but you're every love song that these ears have ever heard. Won't you kiss me like the 4th of July? Tell me that you need me and you'll never say goodbye. Without your love, life's sure to die. So kiss me like the 4th of, kiss me like the 4th of, kiss me like the 4th of July.
Okay, Maria. Honest opinion. If you hate it, tell me.
Okay, I love it, and it actually made me cry a little bit.
I'm glad. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast to look up their music. And there are so many things I can say about this guy who's been gone a long time. But like and I actually talked to my daughter about this when I played it for her. It's the fact that he's gone, like I said before, the two other guys in the band had to figure out a different path in their life. He was prolific. I don't know if you could tell that from just that song, but his songwriting ability even if he wasn't going to be a huge star or the band wasn't going to be the biggest band of all time, I think he had a career in writing music, if that makes sense.
I agree. And I totally recognize his voice. So
Yeah.
I remember Material Issue.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I clicked on that, then it sent me to this radio or TV interview he did with a morning TV show in Indianapolis in 1993, and it just made me, it was laughable because it was what you've seen. Imagine somebody who's a TV anchor in Indianapolis in 1993 interviewing a band that is going to perform that night. It's as bad as you can imagine. It's, what do you think you're going to do with this job as a rock and roll star? It's questions like that. But let me mention the documentary again. I think it comes out next year. If you want to follow that on Instagram, it's at Material Issue Doc. I cannot wait to see what they do. And I probably have some of my facts mixed up. I think I mentioned Ted works at a bank. I think Mike, the drummer, might work at a bank, but I apologize if I had my details, mixed up. But that being said, I want to thank them for allowing us to put it on the podcast, and we got the word that we could do that. So that was pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed it, and you can replay it, and you can watch the video on YouTube and on Instagram if you want to learn more about that band. What can we say, Maria?
And I ugly cried on YouTube here too.
Yes. We are on YouTube. You can watch us. You can, in addition to listening to the podcast everywhere, on YouTube, just search for Doing Life with Maria and Chad. You can subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Online, you can listen to us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pandora, and of course, as we mentioned, YouTube. And that pretty much does it. I know we were a little bit longer today, but there were so many things to share.
I know we had birthdays and road trips and camping and sad songs that make you cry.
I did, yeah, it's bittersweet. I have a photo of him actually in my office, just because he was such an important part of my life. But I wanted to share that with you and everybody. And I guess that's it. We will talk to you on the next podcast.
Thanks again for listening to Doing Life with Maria and Chad. Follow us on Instagram at Maria and Chad. You can now listen to every episode on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pandora, and of course, you can watch on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode.